Hi, nice to see you all again. Today we're going to make what I like to call a happy decoration. So this is what we're going to make. It's made of very humble materials that you can easily get access to, either in your home already, bits and pieces that you could reuse and recycle, and also this is just a stick that I collected on a woodland walk. So it's nice and cheap to make. It's really fun, and it's great for all ages and abilities, and you can make it to your taste. So if you don't like pink and blue, that's fine. These colours make me happy, but you can use any colours that you want, or leave it rustic and you don't have to paint it at all. Pasta. This is just cheap shop bought pasta. Why not try it in a different variety of shapes and sizes? A stick that I collected from a woodland walk, paintbrushes, a needle so that you can easily thread your pasta and beads together, beads. You can use any beads that you like, and you can also use buttons or old bits and bobs like junk beads from old jewellery. And we also need some wool. We can use this for decoration or for stringing up. These are just old bits and bobs I have laying around and I like to reuse, and this is the perfect project to reuse bits and pieces. For my threading of my beads and my pasta, I like to use this kind of string because it's quite smooth, but you can use any string that you have available. There's no right or wrong way. So I use a mixture of poster paint, which is water-based paint, and I also use a little blob of white acrylic. I like to use white acrylic and mix it with the poster paint because it gives the poster paint a little bit more thickness and density of colour. But don't worry about that, that's just my personal preference. You can quite easily just use poster paint or quite easily just use acrylic. So what we're going to do to start off is paint our stick. I will drag out a little bit of white paint onto my palette, and then I'm going to just mix a little bit of this lovely shimmery green. So as you can see, the colour goes on really well when you mix it with white acrylic, but like I said, you can use just poster paint straight on. Now when you've done that and you've painted your stick, you're going to put that aside to use later. Leave it to dry. It should dry while you're doing the rest of the project. In the meantime, here's one I made earlier. So I painted it in all different colours, and I've also, once it was dry, I put some little black spots on. Our next step is to paint our pasta. So just as before, you're going to paint your pasta. Then once you've done one piece, just leave it to dry. So you're going to get quite mucky fingers doing this, but a good little trick to paint the pasta, you could actually thread your pasta onto the end of a pair of scissors, or on the end of a stick, or on the end of a little paintbrush, and then your fingers stay nice and clean. So once you've painted all your pasta, you should have a lovely collection of colourful pasta tubes ready to use. They'll probably take about half an hour to an hour to dry. So while you're waiting for your project to dry, all the bits and pieces, why not have a nice cup of tea? So here's some pasta I painted earlier to start stringing up our pieces. So next we're going to start stringing up our beads and our pasta. So I've got this string here, cut off about 2 arms length of string, so it's quite a long piece. You're going to fold it in half. Now at this point you can either use a needle if your string isn't too thick, because you will need a big eye in your needle to thread it. Or I'll show you a little trick using wire. So you're going to fold your string in half, tie a knot at the end. Now this knot is very important, so I would recommend tying maybe 3 knots, because that's going to stop all your beads and pasta from slipping off the end. So once you've done that, you have a little loop at the top and your knot will be at the bottom of your string. Now if you've got a little piece of wire, or you can use a needle if your string isn't too thick, mine's quite thick, you can put your wire through like this, fold your wire in half, like that. I'm just going to twist the top so we don't have 2 prongs, like that. That makes it much easier to thread little beads and pasta and buttons on without it being too fiddly. So the most important bit here is to use a little stopper bead at the bottom that will stop everything else from falling off. So the stopper bead it wants to have quite a small hole, and you're going to put that on like this. And then we can start threading on our pasta. I think it looks really nice if you put bead, pasta, bead, or a couple of beads and then a piece of pasta, to keep all the shapes and sizes varied, which makes it look more interesting to look at, I think. Maybe you can also thread buttons on as well. And then keep a good amount of thread, maybe about that much, which is about 30 centimeters left at the top, so that you can wind that onto your stick when we are finished. It's up to you how many beads and buttons you want to put on. It's up to you how many strings you want to do. So I've got 3 strings hanging on mine. So the next thing we need to do, once you have made your bead strings, so here we have a stick, the stick I painted earlier, and here's a string that I made earlier. As you can see, I've got a nice amount left at the top. Now what we're going to do is just wrap that around like this. Okay, so that's our first string attached. And you're going to do the same with all your other strings. You're going to wind it around the top, tie it in a knot until you've got several strings on there. And then once you've done that and it's ready to hang up, you're going to use some string to make sure you can hang it on your wall. So this is where my scrap pile of string comes in handy. I'm going to choose one I like. It's a nice multicolored piece. So in the same way, you are going to tie on your string. So I'll finish this later and put more strings on. I think I'll also collect some feathers to hang, some pine cones as well, because I do like lots of natural bits and pieces hanging on. So I hope you've enjoyed learning how to make this lovely happy decoration, and I will see you again soon with another crafty tutorial.